Inaros' name as a stand would be Dust in the Wind, named after the song of the same name by American rock band Kansas. A desert-themed stand, Dust in the Wind has the ability to manipulate the sands to stagger and sweep away its enemies. It can either cast waves of sand forward to stun the enemy, or it can rapidly spin itself, creating a sand twister that pulls in nearby enemies. Dust in the Wind can even use the power of the sands to cheat death. On a fatal blow, it can use the sands to reform into a sand replica of itself, after which it can steal the life force of nearby foes to revive itself. Lastly, Dust in the Wind can harness the desert life in its attacks, specifically the Scarab Beetle. The sand can use these scarabs as armor to render itself immune to any negative afflictions. And more notably, it can send swarms of scarabs towards enemies to devour their flesh. These swarms can even summon cat constructs made of scarabs to spread them further. Nezha's name as a stand would be Ring of Fire, named after the song of the same name by American singer Johnny Cash. As its name suggests, most of Ring of Fire's abilities center around the ring it carries around to attack foes and defend itself. With it, Ring of Fire can toss it at enemies to set them ablaze, releasing a fiery blast when killed. It can also teleport to the ring's location after being thrown. Ring of Fire can also use the ring as a shield to protect itself from incoming damage. Lastly, Ring of Fire's other abilities include igniting its feet, leaving behind a trail of fire wherever it walks, and impaling enemies by summoning spears of light which erupt from the ground, and after some time, slamming them onto the ground, dealing even more damage. Ivara's name as a stand would be Private Eyes, named after the album of the same name by the American rock duo Hall Notes. A stand proficient in the art of hunting and espionage, Private Eyes is a huntress stand, well skilled in silently gathering information and dispatching its enemies with its signature bow. With it, Private Eyes can fire arrows that provide various mechanisms related to the art of stealth, such as an invisibility arrow for cloaking, a zipline arrow for easier travel, a noise arrow to draw the enemy's attention, and a sleep arrow to put enemies to sleep. Private Eyes can also project its user's consciousness into any projectile it fires, essentially guiding it to its target. Lastly, Private Eyes can turn invisible, allowing it to easily pilfer anything from its targets or take them out with its bow. In addition to its stealth arrows, its bow can also fire a volley of powerful arrows in a vertical or horizontal formation. Wukong's name as a stand would be The Who, named after the English rock band of the same name. The Who's abilities mainly center around survivability and confusing the enemy. In regards to survival, The Who, and by proxy its user, can basically cheat death up to 3 times, each prevention granting it a random buff, such as more strength or temporary invulnerability. Next, The Who has powers that trick the enemy, such as shedding a clone of itself to fight alongside it. I've even given this ability a fitting name, Substitute, named after the song by the sand's namesake. The Who can also transform into a cloud, becoming invulnerable while restoring its health. Finally, The Who possesses its own staff to bludgeon its foes, its clone even being equipped with said staff. With it in hand, both can assume a stance to taunt its enemies, absorbing all incoming damage before amplifying it and dealing it all in one punishing blow. Atlas's name as a stand would be Ramming Stone, which is a direct translation of the German metal band Rammstein. A defensive stand boasting immense power and size, Ramming Stone is able to command the earth to both fortify its defenses and pummel its opponents. Its main method of doing so is repeatedly clobbering enemies with its hardened fists. Additionally, Ramming Stone can cast a powerful gaze from its vision, turning enemies into stone, and thereby making them much easier to beat down. When killed, frozen enemies will drop rubble that further solidifies Ramming Stone's defenses. Furthermore, Ramming Stone can also harness the earth to create various constructs, such as a rock wall, which Ramming Stone can launch as a boulder towards enemies, and gigantic rock golems that seek out and beat down enemies, or at a distance by throwing stones. Titania's name as a stand would be Pixies, named after the American rock band of the same name. As its name suggests, Pixies is a fairy-like stand that uses various spells to disorient the enemy, as well as razor-bladed butterflies, or razorflies, to tear through them as well. Its spells include scattering pixie dust to leave foes staggered in midair, and extracting various buffs from individual foes that either empower itself and its allies, or weaken enemies, such as damage reduction for allies, or reduce accuracy for enemies. Pixies can also transform into a flying pixie itself, equipped with its personalized machine pistols and dual blades, while also being accompanied by its razorflies, which seek out and slice up foes. Finally, Pixies can cast a swarm of said razorflies onto an enemy, transforming them into a beacon that attracts nearby foes before releasing a fiery explosion. Nidus' name as a stand would be Creep, named after the song of the same name by the English rock band Radiohead. A stand mutated by the infestation. Creep is able to harness its deadly power to eliminate its enemies. Its primary attack is stomping the ground, releasing a fungal growth that harms enemies, while simultaneously making itself stronger and more resilient to the point of being able to cheat death. Creep's other abilities involve ensnaring its foes in some way, like casting a larva that pulls in nearby enemies into a large cluster and binding itself to an enemy, incapacitating them and redirecting all damage taken towards them as well. Lastly, its most powerful attack is spreading its pestilent growth all around itself, creating an environment for ravenous maggots to spawn from, which swarm enemies and explode on death. Octavia's name as a stand would be Dancing Queen, named after the song of the same name by the Swedish pop group ABBA. Like its name so subtly suggests, Dancing Queen is a stand centered around music, or more accurately, beats and melodies. It produces music by throwing mallets, orb-shaped devices which let out quaking beats of music, dealing great amounts of damage to enemies in their range. It can even summon a disco ball-like device to entice enemies to follow it, while also being able to carry the mallet around to take them out. Additionally, if Dancing Queen times its actions to the beat, like crouching or jumping, it can gain various buffs, such as increased speed or invisibility. Finally, Dancing Queen can throw a device that essentially turns the area around it into a dance floor, amplifying its and its mallet's power. Revenant's name as a stand would be Evanescence, named after the American rock band of the same name. A stand created from the remnants of the Eidolons, beings imbued with eldritch power and ghostly energy. Evanescence is a stand able to harness their destructive power to decimate all enemies in its path. The stand can use the Eidolons' power for several uses, such as mind-controlling enemies to do its bidding, or able to spread the spell to other foes by attacking, and protecting itself with said energy, while also confusing enemies who attack its shield. And of course, Evanescence can use Eidolon energy to perform several attacks, such as transforming into a wave of energy to leech health off its opponents, or its most devastating attack, firing a multitude of energy beams from its arm while spinning around, sweeping the environment of any foes in its wake. The Archons, or in Jojo's context, the things that should not be, are ferocious beasts created from the hybridization of stand and sentient, a race of artificial beings that are hostile to the stand users. The things that should not be is a reference to the Metallica song. There are 3 things in existence: Fly By Night, after the Rush album, Steppenwolf, after the Canadian-American rock band, and Poison, after the American metal band. Fly By Night is an owl-themed stand with electricity-based attacks, as well as various protective spells to render itself invulnerable. Steppenwolf is obviously a wolf-themed stand with fire-based attacks, as well as the ability to deceive others by creating many illusions of itself. Finally, Poison is a snake-themed stand with toxic attacks, as well as the ability to turn invisible, and like a Gorgon, can turn its enemies to stone with its gaze.